Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be reviewing two releases by none other than Eminem, aka Marshall Bruce Mathers III. And first up we're going to be covering his debut album, the Slim Shady LP, released in 1999. But first, if you enjoy videos like this and want to see more, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It really helps out the channel, especially with how YouTube's been changing monetization and viewership features. So, without further ado, let's get into this. And I'll be busting out the handy dandy notebook, because you know my memory's already shit. Anyhow, as I said, Eminem's Slim Shady LP, released after Eminem's Slim Shady EP back in 1999, prior to Dre's 2001, featuring that classic early 2000s, late 90s alternative psychedelic rap, as opposed to the typical hard gangster rap music at the time. This would mark Eminem's first studio album and second project after Infinite. First up, we have the public service announcement skit. While I didn't rate this one, it's one of several iconic Eminem Slim Shady skits, and I felt like I had to include it. It opens with his early solo works, including this album and the Marshall Mathers LP, as well as his projects with D12. It features his alternate persona Slim Shady at the end, saying, "Don't do drugs." And if I'm remembering correct, I believe it was covered by Jeff Bass. The first track on this album opens up with My Name Is, one of many iconic singles produced by Dr. Dre, released by Eminem, with an almost comedic, satire-esque guitar riff, primarily made sampling I Got The by Labi Siffre, an artist also sampled by Kanye West on I Wonder from Graduation. It really sets the tone of the album and doesn't distract from Slim's crazy lyrics, so I feel like My Name Is has impeccable production for the time and really fits Eminem, and of course it was made by the legend Dr. Dre himself. It showcases some of Slim's most memorable lines with the catchy hook, "Hi, my name is," and several interlocking and multi-syllable rhymes, as well as some interesting one-liners about sticking 9-inch nails through each one of his eyelids or stapling his teachers to a stack of papers. And some side notes on here: as many of his songs, it was rewritten several times to be more radio-friendly, censoring or replacing some swears in lines entirely. It showed that Eminem doesn't give a damn, and that he would say anything and name-drop anyone at the time, and that even if you made him rewrite his lyrics, he could still twist it and bend it in a way that fit, and still got his point across. So, yeah, there was really no censoring Eminem. Even if you tried, he would just come out with some crazier shit. Overall, I think this was an amazing song and a 10 out of 10 track for Eminem, aka Slim Shady, with My Name Is. Also, as another side note, I actually recreated this beat, and if you'd be interested in hearing that, I'm uploading a tutorial of it tomorrow, but here's a sneak peek. And with the second track, we've got another classic with Guilty Conscience, featuring a more ominous, eerie beat by Dr. Dre, with the backing strings and funky bass line, as well as the basic stripped-back percussion common at the time. Still obviously more lyrical-oriented over the beat itself, with a storytelling theme and a few verses with Dre and Slim even trading lines. It really demonstrated their chemistry together, but wasn't as a complex, crazy beat or experience like some of today's production that is less lyrical-oriented. It opens with one of 3 stories from Slim's wacky, fictitious hood, focused on Eddie, a poor man about to rob a liquor store when his conscience comes into play, with Dr. Dre playing the good guy and Slim playing the bad guy, and Dre ultimately convincing him to leave as Slim protests profusely. Next, another man, Stan, in reference to the future track Eminem would release, is influenced by Slim to sleep with an intoxicated minor at a party and leave her at her doorstep. Finally, Brady walks in on his wife cheating, and ultimately, Dre and Slim agree to end it there. It's an iconic collab, as I said, and a great demonstration of Dre and Slim's true chemistry together as artists and friends. Overall, I give it a score of a 9 out of 10, because while it's an amazing track, I just don't feel like it's as iconic and synonymous with Eminem and Slim Shady as My Name Is. Track 3, Brain Damage. Back to the comedic tone with the bouncy bass line and guitar and string lead. It's about Slim's fat kid bully in high school named D'Angelo Bailey and poor childhood experiences presented in a funny, chaotic lyrical performance. With Sweaty Palms reference before Lose Yourself existed, it resulted in an insane lawsuit story where Eminem's bully would go on to sue him and ultimately be refused by the judge who would deliver this iconic verse. And yeah, solid track. Not as great as Guilty Conscience or My Name Is, but still a good track overall, so I gave Brain Damage an 8 out of 10. We've got another skit here and a classic that I had to mention with the Paul skit. It's the first of many skits by M's manager and attorney-in-law, Paul Rosenberg, to transition to the next song with a much different tone. Track 4, one of my favorites, If I Had. Much more mellow and somber with the famous hook, If I Had $1 million, making this a standout song. Centered around a more down-to-earth, realistic look on Slim's life at poverty and struggle and what he'd do if he was rich, keeping true to the comedic one-liners of Slim Shady despite the serious message. Honestly, my first or second favorite song on this album here, and one of Eminem's most replayable songs even today. Overall, I'd give it a score of a 10 out of 10, which some may not agree with, but personally, I love this track. Track number 5, we got 1997's Bonnie and Clyde. It's another eerie, dark beat to set the vibe with Slim and his daughter Haley at the dock, with her unalived mother Kim, featuring real studio recordings of Haley as a child. Iconic highlight, but not a 10 out of 10 for me personally. It has a baby voice tone as Slim talks to Haley directly, also setting the vibe and tone a lot better, but I don't care for it as much as My Name Is or If I Had, so I gave it a 9 out of 10, similar to Guilty Conscience with Dr. Dre. We have another skit here that follows 1997's Bonnie and Clyde and is supposedly authentic and unscripted according to lore, with the skit. Can't say the name on YouTube, unfortunately. Okay. I'm going to attempt to drown myself. Track number 6, Role Model. We're going back to that comedic vibe again with that in-your-face, don't-give-a-damn attitude with the memorable punchlines. He name-drops Cannabis here, Hillary Clinton, Garth Brooks, Jerry Springer, and many, many more. Nobody is safe from Slim. Not now, not ever. Overall, it was a crazy track, but not one of the best on here, although I feel like it was definitely on par with Brain Damage for its punchlines, wordplay, and crazy nature associated with Slim Shady. 8 out of 10. Track number 7, My Fault. This is a really comedic track, and one that I don't quite like as much. It's introduced with a funny interlude after a chick ODs on Slim's party favors, as we will call them, with a more comedic, funky guitar on it, as I said. It also has a D12 style, if you ask me, but it's one of the less replayable cuts here, so I gave it a 7 out of 10. We have more skit notes here for King Kniff, and this is the first of multiple funny but very awkward and sometimes uncomfortable moments with King Kniff, who we will unfortunately be hearing from again later. Track number 8, Come On Everybody. Another comedic D12 style song, but one of, if not the worst from this album in my opinion, and the entire Slim Shady arc as a whole, featuring 5 of Eminem's albums, including 2 by D12. It features Deanna Ray, however, known as the Track 13 Girl, for her consistent appearances along Eminem and D12 on their 13th track of several earlier albums, including the Slim Shady LP, Marshall Mathers LP, Eminem Show, and D12's Devil's Night. Overall, a solid track, but not great. So I gave it a similar score to My Fault with a 7 out of 10. Track number 9, we have Rock Bottom, similar to the vibe on If I Had, with almost the same message and themes. It's got a more serious, downbeat tone, telling the story of Slim's life at rock bottom. Being an interesting choice here in the album at this point in time, it's still a solid track and a great one, but not quite as good as If I Had, in my opinion. So I gave it a 9 out of 10 for Rock Bottom. Track 10, we have Just Don't Give a F. Back to the funny old school Slim vibe with squeaky leads that seem as if they're chirping at the listener, sampled from Bob James and other elements being sampled from T-Sky's Catch the Beat. Slim really just doesn't give a F here, going at everybody's throat as his debut single and start to what the world would know as Slim Shady. It's an iconic track and literally the commercial beginnings of this alternate ego. I debated on giving it a 10 out of 10, but I settled on a 9 out of 10. Track 11, As the World Turns. It's a simple stripped-back synth melody with some basic percussion and bass being the most comedic track by far. It showcases two distinct Slim Shady stories with an over-exaggerated and unserious tone, all centered around on making fun of women, doing substances, and living his craziest life as Slim Shady in 8 Mile, Detroit. Overall, I give As the World Turns a 7 out of 10, and honestly, I like this song for its comedy, but overall, it's not an amazing track, and I don't feel like a lot of other people would love this song or like it as much as I do, so I lowered my score of an 8 that I would have probably given it to a 7 out of 10 for As the World Turns. Track 12, we have I'm Shady. It's a typical deep cut here as we reach the end of the project, farther establishing the Slim Shady persona. It's a solid lyrical track, but not super catchy or anything special up to this point. So I gave I'm Shady an 8 out of 10. Track 13, nearing the end here, we have Bad Meets Evil. It's an old Western-style track that actually complements Slim and Royce very well here, despite being quite different from their later works and the rest of this project. It showcases Slim and Royce's unique chemistry, trading lines back and forth, and establishing their Bad Meets Evil duo long before the 2011 rollout. But it's not one of their best tracks overall in my opinion, so I gave it a score of a 7 out of 10, similar to As the World Turns. Track 14, the final one on this album, Still Don't Give a F. It's a fitting sequel to Just Don't Give a F with a more angered, serious, and eerie tone, featuring a backing track of Rain and Thunder, which would become iconic with Eminem's earlier production and later albums even. It's nothing new to Slim's hard-hitting lyrics, comedic one-liners, and slick delivery, and it's quite fitting to end the Slim Shady LP and encapsulate M's mindset and attitude at the time when he met Dre to record this in 1999. So overall, I'd give Still Don't Give a F an 8 out of 10. This would make the average album score an 8.3, however personally, I would say the Slim Shady LP is a 9 out of 10 album. Alongside the two albums we'll be rating today with the Slim Shady LP and that follows, I was going to rate the Marshall Mathers LP 1 and 2 as well as Relapse. However, due to time constraints in my personal life as well as work outside of this, I simply do not have time to record a big enough video to compile my thoughts and opinions for all 5 of these albums at once. So, if you enjoy this one, as I said, consider subscribing and leaving a like, and we will do a part 2 if this one performs successful, covering the Marshall Mathers LP 1 and 2, as well as maybe Relapse. And without further ado, let's get into the second album of today, The Death of Slim Shady. Eminem's latest album released in 2024, over 2.5 decades after the original Slim Shady LP. The death of Slim Shady would mark the end of the Slim Shady ego, which Eminem would hint at in his modern era, following his 4-year hiatus between the MMLP2 and Revival in 2017. While M dissed all his critics on 2018's Kamikaze and would revisit the Slim Shady themes of substance abuse and childhood trauma at times on tracks like Stepdad and Discombobulated from 2020's Music to Be Murdered By, it wasn't until the death of Slim Shady that his alternate ego would make his true turn, with track 1, Renaissance. This opens with an eerie thunder similar to the end of the Slim Shady LP, and a guitar percussive Slim Shady LP type beat to kick off this project. It features old school Slim Shady vocals, sparking debate on whether or not M used AI to recreate his younger self, with those close to him, like associate Fred Reck, claiming it was all old unreleased material, or vocal inflections and or layering, despite the clear use of AI to revive the old look and visuals on the Houdini music video that acted as the lead single for this project. Overall, Renaissance is a solid song, but not anything crazy in my opinion, so I gave it a 7 out of 10. Track 2, we have Habits, featuring White Gold with a more modern feel, with 808 slides and trap-style drums, as Eminem returns to his old current unk voice. It explores Eminem's addiction, to reopening the past as Slim Shady, with this being one of many songs to diss little people. I gave it a score of an 8 out of 10. Track 3, Trouble. It has a spooky sci-fi vibe reminiscent of Relapse, with the song starting as Slim Shady encourages M to relapse and drink. It could be a great concept song with Slim and M arguing and spitting some off-the-wall bars at everyone else as well, but it is sadly only 42 seconds, acting more as an interlude than a full song. However, I gave it a 7 out of 10 for the effort. Track 4, Brand New Dance, originally titled Christopher Reeves. It was recorded and shelved mostly in 2004 with a D12 or encore style, reminding me of my band, and this was actually intended to be on encore until Christopher Reeves passed away. It's a solid track, but mostly for the nostalgia. 8 out of 10. Track number 5, we have Evil. It's another eerie beat similar to Relapse. Something you'll notice with M centering this album more on the style of Encore and Relapse than the actual style of the Slim Shady LP. It's rapped and sung by Eminem in his current voice, with a pretty memorable hook for Eminem singing it. It's a solid song about how M has always been different, housing an inner dark side that makes him special from the rest of the world. 8 out of 10 for Evil. Track number 6, we have Lucifer, with a beat built almost entirely from a pitched-up sample of Malcolm McNeil's Land of Milk and Honey. It name drops Ye and Amber Heard, and it's another solid track, but not one of my favorites, so I gave Lucifer a 7 out of 10. Following that, we have another fitting title, The Antichrist. It's a very quirky beat, and I'm not a fan of the xylophone-sounding lead. It's got solid verses, but a stale hook and an off-putting beat in my opinion, so I gave Antichrist a 6 out of 10. Track number 8, Bringing It Back Up with Fuel, an almost J. Cole type beat featuring Jid produced by Mr. Porter, making for one of the best songs in the entire album, with an impeccable verse from both artists and a great hook sung by Eminem. It directly calls out Diddy and accuses him of putting the hit on Tupac and Biggie. This is a great song and, as I said before, one of the best on this album. 9 out of 10. Track number 9, we have Road Rage, featuring Sly Piper, who was also on Lucifer, as well as Dim Joints. It's a solid track with a modern Eminem style and a more lighthearted tone. One of the less memorable, though, if not the worst next to Antichrist in my opinion, but it does end with a Paul skit. 6 out of 10. Track number 10, we have Houdini, an Eminem show style track on here, similar to Without Me, with the use of the old Slim Shady voice also featuring an AI-generated Slim Shady clone in the music video, with a guest appearance by Pete Davidson. It also has a pretty catchy hook, but it's been crazy overplayed by TikTok. 8 out of 10. Track number 11, Guilty Conscience 2. It's another eerie Relapse-style song with Eminem and Slim Shady going back and forth for 5.5 minutes straight. M addresses Slim directly about his destructive, controversial, and offensive nature, as Slim makes a complete joke of it, also dissing Ja Rule, who alongside Benzino would beef with Eminem and 50 Cent for decades, heavily during the Eminem Show and Encore era. It ends with M unaliving Slim Shady, and then apologizing to everyone he has dissed in the past, finally waking up to see it was all a dream. It's not the catchiest song, but it is arguably the best song on the album for its concept and artistic value. 10 out of 10 for Guilty Conscience 2. Track 12, we have Head Honcho, back to that modern trap style produced by Eminem himself, with credits to and a feature from Easy Mill, continuing M's tradition of charging a feature for a feature after dropping a verse on Easy Mill's Realist when he signed to Shady Records. It's a solid collaborative effort, but I'm not a fan of Easy Mill's Spanish sections, nor do I think it's an amazing or super catchy song, so I gave it a 7 out of 10. Track number 13, Temporary. It features one of the most emotional cuts from this record, with a bare-bones piano and strings instrumental, including a beautiful hook by Skylar Grey, and clips of Haley's childhood throughout the music video. The core message of this song is that all hurt and tears are temporary, and to Haley directly that when Marshall passes, to remember their times together and not to let that temporary pain ruin her own life. It ends the music video with Haley revealing to Eminem that she is pregnant with his granddaughter. Crazy moment for M and his whole fan base. 10 out of 10. Track number 14, coming up on the end here, we have Bad One, another track featuring White Gold, taking us back to that trap beat style with guitar licks to lead and a solid performance by both artists. I think it's better and catchier than Habits thanks to White Gold on the hook, but I still gave it an 8 out of 10. Track 15, we have Toby, in reference to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, featuring Big Sean and Babytron, without Slim Shady vocals, as you may have noticed them disappearing after Guilty Conscience 2. It's got a solid hook by Babytron and good bars from everyone involved, making for a compelling performance, so I gave Toby an 8 out of 10 as well. Track 16, we have Somebody Save Me for the final track. Pretty much entirely reproduced from Jelly Roll's Somebody Save Me, keeping his vocals on the hook. It's another emotional cut to his kids, discussing his past addiction and turmoils. A great song and a fitting end to this album in my opinion. Although some may feel like these emotional cuts were kind of thrown in there, I find it very touching and very true to Slim Shady and Eminem as a whole, giving these little glimpses of his reality and his down-to-earth nature to his fans that care. So I gave Somebody Save Me a 9 out of 10. And overall, I think this is a great project with the death of Slim Shady. It gets an average score of a 7.9, but I would personally give it an 8.5, just 0.5 under the original Slim Shady LP. Some may say that Eminem hasn't had a true piece of art since Relapse or Recovery. However, I believe that the death of Slim Shady is a true piece of art. And with that, we will be concluding today's video. If you all enjoyed and want to see more, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell, because what the hell, and don't forget to drop a like and spread the hype. It really helps out the channel. And if I don't see you next time, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.